How do I find my purpose? That is a really, really good question. It's something I wish I could say that it's just this very simple, easy thing to do, but it is actually not. It is a process. It is definitely a journey. And there's basically two parts to it. The first part is you have to know who you are. You have to know your strengths, your weaknesses. You have to know your roles. You have to know how you talk yourself. You have to know how you think and how you view yourself and view others. It's a definite process. It doesn't have to be hard, but it's definitely something you need to go through so that you can know who you are, what you believe, and from that point on, then you go on to the next step, which is knowing what your center is. And that is key also, because your center is based on what you believe. It's based on how you view things. So you can't have one step without the other step. And knowing what your center is, that is what's going to determine how you live your life. That's going to determine how you're going to get your purpose. That is what's going to show you what your purpose is. And so it's really super important that you know yourself first, then you determine what your center is. Now, in order for me to know what my purpose was, I read this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in addition, I read my Bible because that is a very important part of my life. My faith is extremely important. And so with the two of them together, I went about learning what my purpose was. And to do that, the book has Habits 1 and Habits 2, and they have 7 habits in all. But the first 2 helps you learn who you are and what your purpose or your burning yes is. And I always take what I've learned from a book and see how it fits with my faith. And so that is how I learned my purpose. So, for instance, my purpose is to glorify God by being a great wife, a great mom, and a productive woman. And I know that I learned all that about myself. One, because I know what I want to be. I know I want to be a good wife. I want to be a good mother. I went through the process of learning about who I was, how I talked to myself, how I viewed myself, how I viewed others, learning about my weaknesses and my strengths, and so on and so forth. And it was a really enlightening experience. To be honest, it was not an easy experience because I had to face some things about myself that I did not know that was there or that I had hidden even from myself. And, And so it was a very enlightening journey. Not an easy one, I'll be honest, but I was very glad I went through it because I have come out stronger. I've come out with clarity. I have come out with I'm going for it, for my desire to be a great wife, a great mom, and a productive woman. And then from that, when I went into the second habit, which is finding my center, I realized I had multiple centers. So I had a center where I was a people pleaser. I pleased people. I had a center of my own self, like I was all about myself, I had a center of God and different centers. And the thing is, you can only have one center. You can't have 2 heads. You can't have 3 heads. You can only have 1 head. You have to, and so I had to, the book helps this in great amounts in Habit 2, where it goes through the different centers. And you want your center to be based on really good principles. And I even go farther back as who creates those principles. So I go to the Word of God, and God is my center. And from there, from His Word, I find my principles to live by. And so I had to kick off the people-pleasing centers. I had to get rid of the self-centeredness. I had to get rid of other centers that I had that I didn't realize I really had. And that was what was holding me back, was having all these different centers, because then I was trying to fulfill all these different desires that all these things created. And so once I weeded all that out and I had my one center, it brought so much clarity. And then at that point, I was able to really refine my goals and know what I was supposed to do in life. From that point on, then I also went to my husband, and I already knew what he wanted, what we had decided together to do. And so at that point, I compared what I discovered about myself and my center and my principles and my goals, and I checked if it lined up with my husband, because we're a team. We're not two people living in the same house going different directions. We are together. We are going the same direction. We are walking side by side. And so I made sure that my goals line up with his goals and that we're going together in that process. And that really helped me also, because there was things I realized once I went through this process. I realized that there were things that I was doing that wasn't lining up to our goals, or wasn't lining up to our values, or wasn't lining up to the principles, and it wasn't lining up to what I wanted. And so I was able to weed some of those things off, and it really freed up time. It freed up my mind. It freed up, it helped me to focus on what was most important to me. So that is how I went about finding my purpose. And I'm going to just share a few tips. I wrote some tips down here, and I'm going to share them with you. Now, this process can be, it can take a period of time. For me, it took 10 months. It was 10 months or 8 months, somewhere around there. But it doesn't have to take everybody that same length of time. Some people take longer, some people take shorter, depending on what they're dealing with and where they are at in their self-awareness, how well they know their centers, and so on and so forth. So the first tip is definitely use this book. It is just really enlightening. And don't go fast. Read slowly. Think about what you're reading and really digest it. And write notes about yourself as you're reading every little section. And it's very enlightening. The second thing is, don't overcomplicate it. You're not here to get it perfect. You're here to find out what your purpose is. And you're going to be surprised that your purpose is probably not what you thought it was. And or it was there, but it was clouded by other things. And that's what happened with me. I had a purpose that I always knew what it was, but it was just really crowded with all these other things that I had filled in with it. And so once I weeded all that out, it just really became super, super clear. But don't overcomplicate it by getting it perfect, because he says in the book, just start with something. So I started with my roles and goals. Once I knew who I was and my center was, I started with my roles and goals, and that really brought a lot of clarity to me. And it helped me to know, am I doing what is going to help me accomplish my goals? So that's what I did. And then the neat thing is, you can review your mission or your purpose on a regular basis, and he recommends it. And you're going to tweak it and refine it as time goes on. So you just have to. Those are just some tips that I learned, and I'm going to pass over to you. And I just really encourage you to go and learn what your purpose is, because it will just rock your world, and it will just bring so much clarity to your life.